I have just returned from the greatest historical action adventure. Today, I got to experience the Battle of Bunker Hill in a whole new way, and I did something that I have never done before. Hi everybody, it's me, Katie. Welcome back to my channel where it is all Revolutionary War all the time. I am a Revolutionary War researcher, writer, and speaker based in Massachusetts, and this channel is intended to be a fun and friendly place where I share my research and also go on historical action adventures to the sites where the American Revolution occurred. So battlefields, burying grounds, historic houses, and everywhere in between. And that is where today's adventure falls, somewhere in between. Today, I retraced the steps of the American troops who marched from Cambridge to Charlestown in order to join in the Battle of Bunker Hill on June 17th, 1775. I started at Charlestown Neck, which is where the American troops crossed to enter the Charlestown Peninsula, summited the actual Bunker Hill, and went on to the area where the famed rail fence is thought to have stood, and then continued on to Breed's Hill, where the Bunker Hill Monument stands today, which was also the site of the main American defensive position on the peninsula on June 17th, the Redoubt. And I also timed myself while doing it. I wanted to get a sense of how long it took the men to go from Charlestown Neck to get over Bunker Hill and then to finally take their positions at the rail fence, at the redoubt, and at the breastwork. So let's retrace the steps of the American troops who crossed into Charlestown during the morning and during the day of June 17th in order to take part in the Battle of Bunker Hill. Now, the troops who marched from Cambridge and arrived in Charlestown during the day on June 17th were reinforcements. The night before, on the night of June 16th, a detachment of about 1,000 or 1,500 provincial troops were ordered to Charlestown to entrench upon a hill in the night, which they did. That first detachment of troops in Charlestown entrenched upon Breed's Hill in the overnight hours, and they constructed that main American fortification on the peninsula that day, the main British objective, the Redoubt. Now, in 1775, Charlestown was a peninsula that was bordered on three sides by the Mystic River, the Charles River, and Boston Harbor. And it was connected to the mainland only by this skinny strip of land. Nowadays, there's been so much landfill over the centuries that you don't get that sense of being on this very skinny strip of land anymore while you're at Charlestown Neck. In fact, that area now is dominated by a huge rotary and an old candy factory called Schraff's, which is kind of a local Boston landmark. But on June 17th, 1775, British Royal Navy ships absolutely raked that whole Charlestown Neck area with cannon shot. And they did it in order to prevent more provincial reinforcements from arriving onto the peninsula. That neck was the only land way in or out of Charlestown. And so British Royal Navy ships fired cannon shot all across the neck, forcing the provincial troops who crossed to dodge cannonballs as they did it. Now, in 1775, Big Bunker Hill commanded the area of Charlestown Neck. And in order to join in the fighting, the provincial troops would have had to have gone up and over it. And I thought to myself, would it have winded them? Would having had to climb Bunker Hill before even taking their positions at the rail fence or the breastwork or in the redoubt, would it have fatigued them before the fighting even started? I didn't know. So I climbed Bunker Hill. Now, I realize that this is not 1775. Charlestown nowadays is extremely developed. It is extremely built up. And it is very difficult to know, I think, with any certainty, how the grades of the hills of Bunker Hill and of Breeds Hill have changed since 1775. But I tried it because I wanted just to get a sense of it. And I have to tell you that I was kind of surprised. I did not get winded at all. Now, this is the actual Bunker Hill. It's not Breeds, and we're not going to get into the distinctions between the two, particularly in this video. Now, granted, I was walking up a paved sidewalk the whole way and not on a rutted dirt road or through a rocky meadow. And by the way, it took me 9 minutes to walk from Charlestown Neck to the top of the actual Bunker Hill. Now, as the British were mobilizing in Boston that morning, being ferried across the Charles River, and then forming at Morton's Point in Charlestown and at the base of Breeds Hill, more and more American reinforcements were crossing the neck, climbing Bunker Hill, and taking positions. But as I've said, they all did not take positions just in the redoubt on top of Breeds Hill. So as provincial troops flooded into the area, they started taking positions here along the rail fence line. And the rail fence line was exactly what it sounds like. It was a system of split rail fencing that the men were improvising in the exigency of the moment to create an additional barricade against the British. And this fence line extended almost all the way down to the shore of the Mystic River. So the journey of some of the men who crossed into Charlestown would have ended here at the rail fence line. Hundreds of provincial troops and maybe 1,000 took position at the rail fence. And make no mistake, this was not some type of inferior position to the redoubt. The rail fence was absolutely key in protecting the redoubt. The British could not encircle the redoubt unless they smashed the rail fence line, which they didn't. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons that I always say the Battle of Bunker Hill was about much more than just what happened on top of Breeds Hill at the redoubt. The battle raged all across the peninsula, which sometimes gets overshadowed by what just happened at Breeds Hill, when I think we should just be looking at everything that happened in Charlestown on June 17th. I'll get down from my soapbox now. I got to the area where the rail fence stood in about 2 to 3 minutes from the top of Bunker Hill. It's a very short distance. But again, the rail fence stretched almost all the way down to the Mystic Shore. So beyond the rail fence, some of the men who arrived might have continued on to the redoubt or the breastwork at Breeds Hill. And the breastwork was this kind of external, additional earthen line that extended off the redoubt itself. The men kind of extended one of the walls of the redoubt so that it could provide a little bit of additional protection to the left of the redoubt. Taken together, the breastwork extending off of the redoubt and the rail fence system extending all the way down to the Mystic River helped prevent the redoubt on top of Breeds Hill from being an island out there on the Charlestown Peninsula. They were these additional lines of defense. So to reach where the Bunker Hill Monument stands today, which is about where the Redoubt itself stood, from the rail fence area, 5-minute walk. We're talking very small distances, and this battle raged all across this peninsula in a pretty small land area. So all told, it took me about 23 minutes to walk from Charlestown Neck over Bunker Hill to the place where the rail fence stood, and then on to Breeds Hill, where the monument is now. But that's not all. During the Battle of Bunker Hill, the British torched the village of Charlestown to the ground. Check out this video where I go and visit some of the ruins of buildings that were burnt that day. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.